Hello, hashtag I'm staying family, and welcome to this day 6 of our special broadcast. We've just had the most amazing interview with Mark Abel, which I'm sure many of you must have taken some value out of. Joining us now is none other than Nic Haralambous. Now, this guy is something else, some sort of a phenomenon. At the age of 10, he taught himself coding. At the age of 16, he had his first business. He's had 12 businesses and successfully sold 3 of them. I mean, we're talking about a real show of character here. Nic, how are you doing, my friend?
Very good. Thanks for having me. That's a hell of an intro. I'll try and live up to that.
I have no doubt you will. Nic, before we get going, I mean, just tell us what it is over these last couple of days that you've been busy with. I mean, I think a lot of people anticipated this being a quiet time and a time of, twiddling thumbs and not having much to do. But certainly from our side, that hasn't been the case. And just perhaps share with us what you've been up to these last few days and what it's been like for you.
Yeah, for sure. There's never a holiday for me being an entrepreneur. I think last December, I took the first 3 weeks off I've taken off in 7 years. That's just the way it is. So no, for me, lockdown time is busy time. I have written an ebook on how to start a side hustle. It's 10,000 words, 56 pages. You can get that at my website, nicharalambous.com. I have redesigned my website in that time. And next week, end of this week, I'm going to soft launch a new business to help speakers and entertainers in this new world of remote work. On top of that, I'm still working with a couple of businesses that I'm invested in and one that I actually am still part of. So it's a busy time. I've also been streaming a lot of content. My last, give or take 20 years, 19 years have been focused on small businesses, starting them, selling them, and moving on. So in this period, I kind of knew that it would be really complex for people who are in the middle of a business, trying to run a business, trying to keep it afloat. And these are uncertain times for everyone globally. So I'm trying to stream with people like you and help small business owners understand what they need to be doing to prepare for the fallout. So yeah, for the last 6 or 7 days, I've actually been self-isolating for about 2 weeks now, nearly 3 weeks, because I've got friends overseas who've been warning us that this is coming. So I've been in my house for nearly 20 days. So it's starting to grind on me. But other than that, man, yeah, it's a busy time.
Sure. Listen, I can relate. I also went into self-isolation about 2 weeks ahead of this thing. So, it's been a long grind. I mean, I'm almost 3 weeks in and the walls are closing in on me, but at least we've got the technology that enables us to be able to connect with one another. And that's the one blessing that we have, living in this day and age. Because imagine something like this happening in the 80s or early 90s, we would have been in a far more compromised situation. Even businesses would have been far more compromised. Nic, just tell us a little bit.
Absolutely.
Sorry, my friend. Just tell us a little bit more about your background. I mean, you started coding when you were 10. I mean, just tell us about that. I mean, what was it that drew you to wanting to code, especially at such a young age?
Honestly, yeah, I think it was luck. So that was 1994, and obviously we just come out of apartheid, and for whatever reason, my parents decided to get me and my brother a desktop computer. Actually, I think it was like Windows 95, Windows just before that, around that time, and it was internet connected, and I just jumped online, and my brother didn't show any interest. So I kind of took the computer into my room, and really back then there wasn't that much to do. There weren't search engines that were useful, Hotbot and Lycos and all these interesting things. So you got onto chat, and I don't know how long you've been online, but there was this thing called MIRC, which was a chat platform much like we have WhatsApp today. And you get into those chat rooms, and what you do is you talk about how to build websites. So at the age of 11, I started learning HTML and whipped up a website. And when you're a 10-year-old or 11-year-old kid, you're trying to sound older than you are. My username back then was Soulkeeper, because, the internet. So I built a website called Soulkeeper, and it then became part of what I do. Technology became a thing for me. And I think it was just luck. My parents were a bit forward thinking and brought the computer in and connected us on a dial-up, and I just took to it.
That's absolutely phenomenal. And then from there, it sort of led you onto this journey of entrepreneurship and wanting to start your own businesses. And just tell us a little bit more about that, your journey in terms of getting involved in business. I mean, how did you? Surely you must have bumped your head a couple of times.
Yeah, still bumping my head every day. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, I'm sure you know what I mean. Yeah, so my family are entrepreneurial by nature. My grandparents came from Cyprus and started, as all the Greek jokes go, they started a corner cafe in Velkom, in the Bloemfontein area. I mean, it's just the truth. When Greeks don't know what else to do, we go open a corner cafe. And my parents were also entrepreneurial, not formally educated in tertiary education. So they always wanted me to avoid the entrepreneurial endeavors. My dad was a great entrepreneur, is still a great entrepreneur, but never ever engaged me in that side of the world. He specifically wanted me to get a degree, become a lawyer or a doctor or something. So at school, we had a school project in grade 8, grade 10, and that was my first business. That didn't go very well, obviously, because I'm a 16-year-old kid. But then at 18, I went to Rhodes and started another business there while I was studying journalism and philosophy and politics, and then got into a band. And that was a failed business too, because bands are actually business. It's not about the music. Music just gets you at the table. The rest of the stuff is the business of music. And then it just it rolled. And every job that I had was just a way to fund a business. And I kind of put failure at the very center of the first 10 years of my entrepreneurial career. I'm very familiar with failure. I'm very fond of failure. Most of the smart entrepreneurs I know embrace failure as something that they need to work towards and get over. It's that Edisonian way of building a light bulb, 9,999 ways not to build one, and on the 10,000th way, you've got the right one. You don't consider those first tries failures. They're just learnings until you get to the right way. So what I've been trying to say to people is failure is not an end point. It's a through point. It's something you need to aim for as quickly as you can, get over, and then learn from. And that's kind of how I've treated the last 15 or 20 years of building businesses.
That's phenomenal. I listened a short while ago to a little video clip that Will Smith put together while he was in the back of some car, and he was talking about exactly the same thing. You go to the gym to sort of exercise your body, and the whole point of it is failure. You want to push your body till the point of collapse, and then the next time you come back to the gym, you'll be able to do one more rep, one more set. And I think we need to approach business in the same sort of way. I personally have had a number of failures in business that I've ventured into, but each time you learn something from them, you take something away from them. And also in my view, you also learn a little bit more of compassion, a little bit more understanding, and there's an aspect of humanity that comes shining through from all of that. So Nic, just tell us, I mean, in terms of what we touched on earlier about how to help people navigate through this time. I mean, we're obviously sitting in a very challenging time right now as a country, as a nation. This lockdown has affected a lot of businesses, and there's a lot of concern out there in terms of where things are going to go. So maybe just give us a little bit of your insights there.
Yeah, I am the bearer of bad news. I'm trying to help entrepreneurs and business owners be as realistic as they can about what's coming. The short term, 6 months, I'm calling that the short term, because if you think we're out of this in 3 weeks on the 16th of April, you are dreaming. So I'm calling this a 6-month short term trough. That means that the 6 months are going to be bad. It's going to get worse over the next months. So it's definitely going to go into a decline. And then it's going to stay bad. I don't think we're going to climb out of this on, let's just say, the 1st of June, and the economy is going to wind itself back up. We are headed for another recession. We are unequivocally going to be into a bad position. With the ratings downgrade that happened this week, that just means that there is no foreign investment coming to stimulate our economy, and our government doesn't have the money to stimulate small businesses. They think that they do, and they don't. Fundamentally, we're putting money into the wrong places, into the ESCOMs and the SAAs, when we should be shutting those down and distributing the 160 billion rand going into those entities. So for small businesses, I'm trying to help everyone be as realistic as possible without panicking. So I'm not saying panic, I'm not saying freak out, but I am saying you really, really need to consider, what if the economy doesn't wind back up and your business only gets back up to 30% of where its revenue was in January 2020? How are you going to cope with that? If you're a barbershop, are your customers going to rush back and spend their 300 Rand getting their beard trimmed? Maybe not. Maybe it's going to take them 3 months before they feel comfortable. So my message is there is opportunity, absolutely. And there's no need for negativity or piling on the negativity, but you need to be realistic. You need to look at every expense. You need to understand your cash on hand. If you don't know what cash on hand is, you need to Google that. If you don't know what cash flow is, you need to go figure that out. And the key thing that I'm trying to get everyone to assess is what are your expenses for the next 6 months? What is the revenue coming in 3 different scenarios? The best case, the worst case, and the likely scenario. If you're thinking revenue is going to track back up at 100% from the 1st of June, you are in la la land. You are absolutely dreaming. So if you're a business owner right now and you don't know what your expenses will be in 3 months, you need to start figuring that out. You need to start answering these questions. And then the last thing that I'm trying to help people think through is the recovery curve. So if the economy kicks back in and the lockdown is over on the 1st of May, do you go straight back up to 100%? Do you go to 80%, to 70%, to 60% of where you were? And if you do, then what do you need to do with your expenses to make sure that you break even and can sustain yourself? So is the recovery curve immediate, or is it slow and takes you through to 2021? Because for my money, realistically, you need to be planning a 2-year recovery strategy, not a 6-month recovery strategy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, I think your words are hard hitting, but there's levels of reality that we must accept. This is not going to be easy. I mean, we've just heard that the Federal Reserve might have triggered a housing market crash. I mean, that's just forgetting about the stuff that we've got going on here in South Africa. We're talking about the powerhouse of the world, which has just found itself in a little bit of trouble. We know what happened the last time there was a property market crash. And that was 2008, and we all saw what happened there. Now we've got that to deal with, on top of the fact that we're currently sitting in a situation where businesses are just not able to turn. So what do we do? I mean, how can small businesses or small business owners or entrepreneurs that are thinking about going into business use this time to and take levels of creativity to sort of pivot their business or take advantage of the situation we're currently in?
So I'm going to start with what I think businesses shouldn't do. I think you shouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction. And I've seen a lot of this online. Oh, your business needs to get digital. Okay, cool. But if you know nothing about digital, it's going to take you a year just to learn how to set up a marketing campaign, just a year to figure out how to build a website for your whatever product that you were selling in retail. So I'm not saying you should shoot to digital immediately. That might not work for you, because things are going to wind up again and your business is going to work again. So what you should be doing right now, in my opinion, is figuring out how to make the money you have last as long as possible. That means talk to your staff. And the big thing that I'm trying to get across is communication here is key. I'm going to publish an article later today about, I'm so excited that this pandemic has finally put communication at the forefront of everyone's mind. I've never communicated so openly and freely with anyone in my life. And equally, I've never cut out people that I don't want to spend time with so quickly in my life. And the same thing needs to apply to business owners, right? Talk to your customers. Be honest, don't beg, but be frank. This is what we're going through. This is what we need to survive. That's really straightforward. Most customers don't want you to die. I've got restaurants I go to twice a week. I want to give them my money. I want them to come back to me and go, here's a voucher, come see us when this is over. So talk to your customers, then talk to your staff. Can they take a payment break? Can you pay them for 1 week instead of 4 weeks? Is there something you can do to give them some kind of break and they give you some kind of break? So engage them in the solutions, and then talk to your suppliers, talk to the people you owe money to, talk to the people who owe money to you, and just try and find a middle ground, because everyone is going through the same thing. And I think that's a key point, is we are isolated physically, and we feel like we're the only ones whose business might go under, who is suffering, and that's not true. We are all suffering together on a global scale. And I think we forget sometimes that the macro of this is, for the first time, 206 countries are fighting the same enemy. We've never experienced anything like that in our generation and generations before us. So be open. Like, be transparent. And South Africans are notoriously shit at this. We don't like to ask for help. We don't like to engage other people. We don't like to be vulnerable. Listen, we're all vulnerable. It's time to open up and be vulnerable together so that we can find a way to work towards this. If you isolate yourself, you're dead before you've even started.
You know, I love what you said there, because, and this is something that I've seen, a trend that started some time ago already with regards to businesses. And and this shiny, finished, polished product that businesses were trying to sell. And the sales techniques that they were using, they were trying to implement sales techniques from the 80s and the 90s and using them today. And I think there's something to be said for authenticity and vulnerability. We must be willing to show our mistakes, talk about our mistakes, because people relate to that sort of thing. Yes, we've slipped up, we made a mistake over here, but this is what we've done to try and navigate our way through it. I think that's how you really need to build up trust. And I think trust is going to be the key factor driving us forward. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we can talk about how to build a culture around this trauma that we're all in, for the last 10 years, not even 10 years, 5 years, I've been practicing something called radical candor. It was created by a lady who worked at Google, and the premise is really simple. You want to challenge people directly, but care personally. That's radical candor, and that involves a deep level of trust. So I trust that I'm working with the best people and that they will be honest with me when I do something dumb. And they'll say to me, Nic, that was really dumb. We still dig you. You're an amazing guy, but that thing you did was really dumb. So it's really important for us all to be transparent, work with people you trust, and be honest with them. And the second one there is key for me. If you don't work with people you trust, this is the time to figure it out, right? I'm at home in my bedroom right now. My team needs to trust that I'm doing the best I can for them and for our business. If they don't trust me, they should leave. And if you're sitting at home now and you're worried that your staff are screwing around or that you're paying them for not doing any work, you need to have an upfront conversation with them and just figure out if you can trust them. And that applies to your family, your friends. If you're not talking to people because you don't trust them or you don't want to, maybe now's the time to get rid of them. And I actually want to jump back on the trust thing. Earlier, we were talking about this failure concept. The only time I've ever been able to fail comfortably is when I'm with people who I trust and who trust me. And then I'm not embarrassed by that failure. And this is the thing that we're all going through too, is, oh my goodness, my business is going to go under. This is so embarrassing for me. What is everyone going to say? Let me hide from them instead of let me open up to them. And this is what we need to start shifting, right? Is we're a humble, cautious bunch of people in South Africa, and that's got to change. We've got to be okay with failure. We've got to be okay with things dying and starting again. One of my 10 Nicisms, the 10 things that I live by, is sometimes you've got to burn it all down, man. And that's where we're at. Sometimes it's easier to let this business die, spend the next 6 weeks planning what you're going to do next, and then build something new in the opportunity that exists. And to do that, you have to work with people you trust them, and be honest.
That's just phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. Listen, I think that whatever transpires after this period is over, and I take great cognizance of what you were saying. This is not a quick fix. It's not like someone's just going to flick a switch on the 16th of April and bang, we're back in business. But I do think that there's always opportunities. It's it's like a conversation I had with Richard, to say that it's like you have this wildfire that burns through a mountain and it devastates everything in its path. But out of that comes these new shoots, these new green shoots that enable us to do things and to see things in a different light. I mean, so let's say you've got a business right now, and let's look at Edcon as the model, right? You've got this business, it's a big business, it's been around for a very long time, it's got these massive, bulky overheads. I mean, what can we be doing as businesses in this space to sort of start looking at how to lessen the impact and how to adjust our business going forward, expecting that this may be a once-off occurrence, or it might happen again in our lifetime? How do we start putting in measures that will help us to reduce our risks wherever we can going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, I think it speaks to a more of a global trend that I'm seeing even prior to this pandemic. Business owners, whether they're small, medium, large, startups or not, they've, for the last decade or so, been capitalistically obsessed. We want masses of profit as quickly as we can grow them. We want to raise a metric ton of funding and just grow this global business. And I think what we're seeing is a backlash from that. We're seeing WeWork, who abused staff and abused landlords and was fraudulent. We're seeing Uber, who's now rectified their previous ways of being misogynistic in their businesses. Those businesses were all growth for the sake of growth. They don't care about the society and the culture around them. And I think that the next 10 years of business is hopefully going to slightly shift the perspective on that. We're going to look for sustainable businesses. And I don't mean sustainable only in the climate change way. I mean societally sustainable, things that uplift the community around you, businesses that grow slowly and are cautious with their cash. I mentioned cash on hand earlier. The businesses that are panicking right now are businesses that didn't save anything on hand. They're businesses that expenses were paid month to month. That needs to shift. We need to start thinking about, okay, if I'm making 100,000 Rand in profit, 15 of it needs to go into a savings so that I can save up a 6-month slush fund. And that applies to your personal living too. what I'm trying to also help people on a personal level understand is, for the last 5 years, I've cut my expenses down. It's just me and my partner, so that we can live anywhere in the world, the lifestyle that we want, because we don't spend a lot of money. I have one beat up old car. We have one little beat up scooter. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment. The time for minimizing your lives is now. The time for spending money on BMWs, we're over, guys. Now think about this. If this lockdown goes on another 3 months, you're paying whatever you're paying for your car, 10, 15 grand for nothing. You can't drive that car. It adds no value to your life day to day other than making you feel like you're fancy. And that applies to businesses too. You need to stop feeling like you're fancy and build a solid base. And the most solid base for businesses is profit. You've got to get to profit as quickly as you can. And there's 2 ways to do that. Increase your sales and decrease your expenses. You just got to figure out right now which one you can do realistically. And those are really the levers you can pull in the very, very basic level of it.
Yeah, that's some phenomenal advice. I really like that. You know, I'm looking at the world today, and people have worked really hard to get themselves these really flashy things. And by and large, I mean, predominantly, if you drive around the area that I'm staying in, you'll see guys living in a very mediocre place, but they're driving a car that costs probably more than the property. And the chances are that car is probably it's a higher purchase, or it's some sort of a balloon payment in place. All of that stuff is really useless to us right now. I think we really need to stop trying to impress other people and start thinking about the future of where we're going, because nobody really cares. Nobody cares what car you drive. And the people that do care about the car you drive are not people you really want to be associated to. I think we've really got to start readjusting the way that we're thinking about things. It's all about survival, and it's all about getting the most out of your life. You know, what value you can add. From a meditation standpoint, I mean, just you know, in terms of trying to keep yourself level-headed, do you have any suggestions around that space? I mean, just so people can sort of work through their mental state at this time.
Yeah, if you'd asked me this question 12 months ago, I would have laughed. But I've spent the last 3 years working extremely hard at mental health. Again, I'm going to highlight specifically South Africans, and even more specifically South African men. We don't believe it's okay to be mentally healthy. We don't believe it's okay to talk about mental struggle and strain. I see a psychologist, and I'm very happy to call him my mental coach. It helps South African men understand why having someone help you with your brain is better, right? You can have a physical coach you go to gym to see, and he makes your physical body strong. Why not have a mental coach you see to make your mental body strong? And that's what I do. So I see a psychologist whenever I need to, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. I also meditate as often as I can. That's likely once a day. I use an app called the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. It's really the only one that I've found that isn't too airy-fairy for me and spiritual. He's very clear about the existential nature of meditation and how you position yourself in the world. And that's the kind of the angst that I struggle with, is the big why. Like, why do we bother? I'm an existential nihilist, so that helps me care less about the big picture. We're an infinite, tiny little planet in this huge universe, and that gives me a bit of perspective. So meditating every day helps with that. But I think the key thing here is it's okay to talk about your unhealthy mental states. We're all in lockdown. My partner and I practice radical candor with each other. So when she's having a bad day, she'll just be like, listen, get away from me. I just need you to get away from me for 10 minutes. And that's cool, because that's life, right? So that honesty, again, we spoke about it earlier, it applies to your day-to-day life. If you can get that right with your partner, you can probably get it right in the broader sense of your life. So those are the things that I'm doing: physical exercise, mental meditation. And it's really hard right now to separate work and home life, because they're the same, but we try and do that. 5 o'clock comes, we stop working, we hang out, we make dinner. In the morning, we take our dogs into the parking lot in our complex and we run them around. And then we have our morning coffee. So these routines really help in a time like this. Just also, you can see I'm dressed like I'm at work, because otherwise I'd be in pajamas every day. And all these things help with the mental state. They're little additions to your day that make it a bit more bearable.
Fantastic, Nic. Fantastic. If you had one message that you wanted to tell the country today, what would that message be?
Wow, that's a tough question. The message would be that we are all struggling through this together. So suffering in silence is never going to work. That old adage that if you want to understand someone's disposition, just try and walk a mile in their shoes. I think we need to be conscious of that today. I think every business is under strain. I'm seeing a lot of people go, this is how you fix it, and this is bad, and this is good. Yeah, this is good for you. right? Everyone's fighting their own battle. The person you're shouting at, the neighbor who you think is running around, going outside, might be looking for a job, has just gotten retrenched. You don't know. So one of my favorite essays is written by the Basecamp founder, Jason Fried, and he basically says, just give it 5 minutes before you react. If you're angry, just feel that anger for 5 minutes and then see if it dissipates. If you're pissed off at someone, just see if there's a reason. Just give it 5 minutes before you lash out at them. Because right now we all just need to be patient and calm and just see where this all goes while you're preparing, because let's not forget about the preparation. And just jumping back to my psychologist to add into this wait and be calm thing, he said something to me that completely changed my perspective on the world. He said to me, Nick, do you know that waiting is an action? It's okay to wait and treat that like it's a move. You don't always have to be forcing something and wait. You can wait. And right now we're all in a bit of a waiting, holding pattern. So you can make preparations and make plans and then wait to see what happens until the world brings you forward. That's what I got, man.
That's a stunning message. And then finally, if anyone wants to get hold of you, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now that are with your very brutal, very honest realization of where we are right now, that might want to get in touch with you and connect with you and might be looking for some sort of assistance. How do they reach out to you?
So there's a few ways. You can go to my website. It's nicharalambous.com. You can Google me and find that because my surname is a bit tricky to get. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Nic Haralambous, and on Twitter at Nic Harry. And yeah, let's chat. I'm doing a lot of live streams. So yeah, I'm happy for people to engage with me on social media.
Nic Haralambous, ladies and gentlemen. Nick, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And take care, my friend.